Ooh, the Ghast is stinky. He's a stinky boy. Okay.
Sorry, that really got me for some reason.
He's a stinky boy.
He's a stinky.
Hi, I'm Emmy.
And I am James.
And welcome back to the Bestiary Monster Manual A through Z. And James, what are we discovering today?
Well, we've done ghosts. We've not yet done goblins, but we are now on to ghouls.
Yes, a particularly nasty, mean, awful sort of undead. They are a very particular kind of undead monster that is very separate from zombies, much despite the fact that they behave sort of similarly. They crave undead flesh, and so that's typically where you're going to find them, but they are intelligent, they can speak, and they have a lot of lore behind them.
Yeah, in fact, so much lore because ghouls and ghasts and the idea of corpse eaters, cursed for the consumption of the flesh of the dead, is a concept that's existed as a monster in folklore across most of the world, actually, for a good chunk of human history. And so a lot of the entry in the monster manual here is around fitting them into the D&D multiverse. How do they come to be and operate within the systems of Dungeons and Dragons? In the case of this, the first ever ghoul was an elf, a worshipper of the demon prince of undeath, Orcus, an elf by the name of Dorsain, who was cursed for his practices and turned away from the elven gods, and yeah.
He became this. Yeah, he's specifically, in order to honor Orcus, ate elf flesh. And so, again, that goes back to that taboo of cannibalism that, it, as you were saying, you see pretty universally across. And so he was cursed. So ghouls still to this day have abyssal origins. They were created from this template by Orcus to hunger across the earth. That particular one, and this was such a funny thing because it's written here in this one paragraph, and then you never see it again anywhere else except for in this.
Yeah, we have
exact
questions.
Interest.
We have
so many questions about this. So Yinagu was fighting Orcus, as is wont to happen, and Dorsain was feeling like he was going to die, like he was running out of options, and so when Orcus would not save him, he returned and asked for forgiveness from his elven gods, who granted him clemency and returned him to them. It's weirdly implied, I guess is the word I'm looking for here, that it doesn't look like he went back to just being himself. It looks like he probably died and then he went to the elf gods. But elves in this also, oh my gosh, I can't speak words. I'm losing all of them. There's too much lore, you guys. We have so many questions. I'm overwhelmed by them. They regenerate and James, help.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
They come back. They come back.
Reincarnate.
Thank you. I was so close, you guys. Welcome to the Bestiary, where we search for words. They reincarnate, but he returned to his elven gods. But the reason we bring this all up is elves are immune to ghouls' paralyzing touch.
Yeah. It says, since then, elves have been immune to the ghoul's paralytic touch. Doesn't say that in the stats.
Nope.
Doesn't say that anywhere under the entry for elves in the player's handbook.
Just part of it here. It's just here in this paragraph. I'm glad we read it.
I mean, it's a single sentence, but it has so many possible ramifications. Like, is this a whole racial feature that has just been forgotten? What's going on here?
Yeah, and it really speaks to, again, the lore behind this, and the war between the demon princes and the elven gods, and the nature of ghouls, and you could really play with that, especially if you put ghouls near elves in an elven campaign. You would really have to think about all this, and it's a sentence at the end of this paragraph here, and I have about 20 more questions as to what that actually entails.
Now, I mean, at the same time, I'm sure we're not the first people to notice this. There's probably whole threads on Twitter, like, barraging, Crawford and, other designers at Wizards of the Coast.
Tell us more about the elves and the ghasts. But yeah, it's all in there. And actually, on that note, we should talk a little bit about exactly what a ghast is. So within this particular entry, there are actually two. There's ghouls and ghasts. And ghasts are stronger ghouls. They've been imbued with more abyssal energy, so they're smarter, stronger, tend to be giving orders, which also leads back into the fact that you're probably going to meet more than one of these. Since they come from the abyss, they tend to exist in a mob.
Yeah, I mean, most demon-influenced or abyssal-natured enemies, they do have like that kind of horde style of fighting. And so, while ghouls are really little more than particularly intelligent animals, little more than beasts, ghasts actually have, with an intelligence of 11, technically slightly higher than average intelligence. And so you might encounter, a group of like a dozen or so ghouls led by a single ghast. And in terms of, their appearance, they're probably largely the same. A ghast might just be a bit bigger, a bit stronger, might have a little more intelligence, and probably slightly better posture.
Probably, especially, I know, speaking of appearance, looking at the art for this guy, I'm imagining it's just this but more.
I love this, actually.
It's so intimidating and scary.
It's very metal.
Yeah, it really is. Everything from the rags and the claws and the posture and the mouth hanging open. And everything about it is just very wrong looking. The posture of the head and the way it's leaned forward, the proportions of the torso to the arms, to the hands, to the claws. Everything about this just speaks to just this fear that you feel deep inside. It's very scary looking.
Of course, you have that long, almost prehensile tongue that you can just imagine being used to get the marrow out of bones, and all up in there with the organs and whatnot, and those terrifying long claws.
That sense of hunger, and with the jaw hanging open, the teeth. You can see some of the elvish origins, too, in the way that the head is shaped, the ears, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the ears the dead give away.
You can really imagine it coming after you and chomping on things, and it's a very visceral, scary piece of art.
There's a running theme in a lot of different fictional properties, not just D&D, but the idea of elves being kind of this model of perfection and yet being so easily corrupted. Like, you can see the strength and the power that might have been in an elven form in this creature, but it doesn't seem to have any of the grace or elegance that you might expect from an elf. It's been turned towards this just animalistic ferocity, which I'm a big fan of, personally.
Speaking of that, in many ways, with the way this art is done and the lore in this, I couldn't help but think of some of the lore of the original orcs and Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings a little bit. I know, obviously these are not orcs, but that there was just that ring of again, that sense of corruption and creation.
I definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's not the same, but it felt like a similar point of origin, like that. Again, that, like you were saying, that easy corruption. That sense of being able to take something that exists and twist it.
One other thing, actually, that separates ghouls from ghasts that we should mention, and that, Emmy, I think you found particularly amusing, is that while ghasts, they're not only more intelligent, they're also more smelly. To the extent where they actually get a feature, the stench feature, specifically.
Yeah.
We're just being near it can poison you.
Yeah, it just smells really bad, which I guess makes sense. They are abyssal, they've been eating undead things, and it doesn't say exactly how that works. It doesn't imply that they breathe it out. It's just kind of something that emanates off of them, and I think that's something that the DM could obviously have a lot of fun with what rot particularly entails. It also has turning defiance, so it has advantage on saving throws against being turned. They're just a little bit extra special nasty.
Yeah. Thank you, Weary Traveller, for once again joining us here in our little corner of the internet for the Bestiary Monster Manual A to Z. What ghoulish and ghastly encounters have you had with the eaters of dead flesh? Let us know in the comments down below, and while you're there, if you enjoyed the video, please do hit that like. It does actually help out the channel. You can subscribe if you haven't already, and you will also find our various examples of social media, including our Patreon, if you feel like supporting the channel a little more substantially. We truly appreciate it, and we are grateful to all of our patrons out there. You know who you are. Here are a couple of other videos of ours, and join us next week where we begin to delve into the rich veins of awe and lore that are giants. And remember, don't eat the green wobbly bit.